Hello everyone and welcome to this AWS Nordics office hours, Ask Me Anything. My name is Gunnar Grosch, I will be your host for this session, and I have a very special guest with me today, my dear colleague, Veliswa. Hi Veliswa.
Hi Gunnar, hi everybody. Hi Gunnar, thank you for hosting me today. Hi everyone, I'm Veliswa Boya. I'm also a developer advocate working for AWS. I'm in the same team as Gunnar, just joined last month. I am based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
That's great, and so glad to have you on the Nordics AMA. You have your AMA as well in Africa, right?
For now, it's kind of just paused. We want to pick it up though from April onwards. We want to pick it up. There's just been other stuff that we actually want to prioritize and run, but yes, we do have one.
That's right. And on the team, you are now in the spot that Cobus was in before, right?
Yes. Yeah, I keep saying that. People keep saying me, are you replacing Cobus? And I says, I cannot possibly be replacing Cobus. I don't have the beard. So
no, that's right.
Thanks for
Well, very good. Happy to have you here today, Veliswa. So we're going to talk, of course, about AWS reInvent this time as well. It's been the topic for us for several of the episodes. And if you're watching, if you have any questions, be it AWS-related questions or tech-related questions, or of course reInvent-related questions, do ask them in the chat. Both me and Veliswa will do our best to try to answer them. And I think probably people are excited to know more about the journey that you've done to get to the position you're in as well, Veliswa. So might be that we'll get questions around that as well.
Yeah, happy to talk about that.
Great. So, as you mentioned, you've been on the team for a month. Compared to you, I am now a long-time member of the team. I joined 3 months ago, so
whoa,
we're both quite new on the team. All right. So today we're going to talk about AWS reInvent and some of your favorite sessions, some of your favorite announcements from reInvent. But before we get to that, I want to mention something that's happening tomorrow, where we in the Nordics will be doing our AWS recap, where we'll host a webinar to talk about AWS reInvent and then talk about the announcements, things that happened during reInvent. Let me just share my screen.
Actually, it's the end of the day.
Pull it up. There we go. So we are doing this AWS reInvent recap in the Nordics, covering everything that happened basically during reInvent. The first 3 weeks, and then we had some additional days as well last week. So this is a session that's scheduled for tomorrow. We're starting at 9 in the morning, 9 a.m. CET, and we'll be going for about 3.5 hours. So I will be hosting, moderating the session, and talking about some of the announcements. But I have a great team with me of other speakers as well. Several of the AWS solutions architects from the Nordics will be joining me. So we have Niklas talking about serverless. We have Andreas talking about containers. Vikesh talking about AI and ML. We have Tim to talk about the database releases. Johan will talk about some of the analytics announcements that we saw. And then we have Thomas to talk about some things around system administration and operations as well. So this is something that I do recommend that you join us for. Let me share that link as well. So
is this going to be live, Gunnar?
Yes, this is going to be live. So, Veliswa, I think you're doing a recap in South Africa as well, right?
Yes, we're doing that next week. Our one is we're going to have ours recorded, but exactly a day before our recap, I'm actually going to be speaking at a meetup, just covering some of the developer-specific announcements from reInvent.
All right. So, and how do you register for that event then?
Okay, I'm going to find the details. I'm going to post them here. I'll post them just now. But yes, you can start registering for that as well.
That's great. All right.
I will be sharing the stage with Gobas on that one.
That's good. So we will now move over to the topic of today, which is Veliswa's reInvent experience, more or less, to talk about some of the things that you've seen, some of the sessions and so on. So let me pull up that screen and we'll start. So to begin with, you joined during reInvent.
Yes. I joined during reInvent. I joined on the 3rd of December, and I think reInvent started on the 7th.
Yeah, so is that a good thing to join during reInvent?
It was a lot. You're still trying to take in everything else that you've just started. It's at Amazon, and reInvent is happening. So I kind of missed a lot of reInvent. A lot of the sessions and announcements, okay, the keynotes, I could actually dial in and tune into those. But most of the sessions, I kind of had to catch up later on after everything had gone to YouTube and was available on demand. So I thought, how weird is it that the very first year that I actually worked for Amazon, I got to miss quite a lot of it in the beginning, but I was still there for all the excitement, all the fun. I could join in on social media as everyone was discussing the announcements as they were coming through.
Yeah, it's there is a lot during reInvent. I think we all agree on that. So having these type of wrap-up sessions where we get to talk about what happened, I think it's helping a lot. I have a hard time keeping up, so I imagine most people have. All right, so moving into your top sessions then, Veliswa, let's look at the first one. So tell us about it.
Okay, so this sparked a lot of excitement actually when I heard about it, and I think when the community heard about this managed chaos engineering service that was announced recently by AWS. It's where you can now safely inject chaos engineering into your applications. You're going to see later on when we go through the sessions that I actually enjoyed. Okay, so this is the session. This actually ties to the announcement. How I actually tailored my watching of sessions, most of it was tailored to the announcement that came up. So an announcement comes out and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm curious to hear more about this. And then I would look for a session that kind of aligns to that. So this session aligns to the announcement of FIS, this chaos engineering as a service at AWS.
Yeah, and this is definitely an announcement that got me really excited, or a session that got me excited. Chaos engineering is one of my favorite topics, and Adrian is, he's not only a good friend, but he's also someone that is really good at talking about these types of services and announcements, and also the entire concept of reliability, resilience, and chaos engineering. So
you'll see Gunnar, when you go to watch this session, because you get an overview and then there's a demo of how to actually implement this, which I thought was quite awesome, and it's a very straightforward way of learning about this new announcement.
Yeah, because the tooling is one thing around chaos engineering, knowing how to use the tools, but also the practice in itself, why you want to do it, and how you actually use chaos engineering is, of course, a big part. And in this session, I think Adrian covers some of that as well, the reasoning for using these types of tools.
Yes.
So that's a great suggestion, this session, to watch that, EMB042. And that code, you can simply enter that into the reInvent site and search for the session to find it there, to watch it on demand. So all of these sessions are available on demand now after they aired the first time. So search for them in the reInvent site. All right, so let's move on then to the next one. Test twice, deploy once. Testing infrastructure code on AWS.
This has become one of many that was trademarks. Infrastructure as code on AWS. This is a very awesome session on how to actually implement IAC on your in your environment on AWS. You can check that out as well. There is that code for you to go and look that up. It got very good reviews. I saw on Twitter there were a lot of good feedback on this one. Very helpful. The developers really aligning to this session.
And what does Darko cover in this session? Is it mainly CloudFormation, or does he look at other things around IAC as well?
From what I remember, it's mainly CloudFormation, but there could be others as well. But that's just what I remember from when I watched it.
And Darko, he's also a member of our team, so he's a developer advocate for AWS and based out of Germany. So that's the session DOP 309, test twice, deploy once, testing infrastructure code on AWS. Right, so next then, what's new in Amazon EC2? This is a big one.
Yes. What's great about this session is the fact that, every year at reInvent, there's always a lot of announcements around EC2 or compute. This will focus on everything that was announced at reInvent that pertains to the EC2. So this is another great one to check out. Let me just check some of the announcements. This will not cover the storage side of it, but mainly around what was announced for EC2.
Yeah, and there were several announcements around the EC2 at reInvent this year. We had several announcements on different types of EC2 instances, but also around different chips and the type of instances that we now offer at AWS. So this is a great overview of the announcements around EC2 for AWS as it stands right now with the new instance types. And this is, of course, something that's also covered a lot in the different AWS recaps that are happening now around the globe. The one we're doing in the Nordics tomorrow and the one you'll be doing in Africa later this week as well.
There used to be a time when I think we all felt you could keep up with the types of instances that are out there, but because there's been so much innovation taking place on AWS, I don't think it's possible to keep up anymore. I remember when I used to, I'd be preparing for my certifications, there was an acronym that I used to study through A Cloud Guru that they had this acronym to help you remember the instant types. I'm sure by now it's all messed up because there's been so much that's coming out. So it's good to have sessions like this that kind of help you keep up with what's actually been announced.
Oh, that's right. So CMP 201, the session around new instances for EC2. All right, so build consistent and portable machine learning environments with containers. This is an interesting one.
So there were recent announcements around containers being brought very closely with serverless as well. But now this session will kind of show you how to, using ML, to build your environments on containers. Antje, who's also a member of our team, is presenting this one.
Okay, so do you know anything more about the things that she covers in that session?
There is a service that was announced. I just need to go back and look that up. There is a service that was announced, and that gets covered in this session as well.
All right. So AIM 317, build consistent and portable ML environments with containers. And then we have an IoT session introducing AWS IoT Sitewise Edge.
So when Andy Jassy gave his keynote, he said something very interesting, that AWS will redefining what is edge, because what is seen or considered as edge. In the beginning, other corporations had their own definition, but that was just allowed to the fact that they were selling on-premises services, and they define that as edge. We're changing how, because it's gone so broad now, what actually is edge. So we already have AWS IoT Sitewise that's now available on Edge. This is this session will actually take you through what this offering actually is about.
Right, and That session is then EMB 043, introducing AWS IoT Sitewise Edge. There were a lot of IoT announcements during reInvent, during the IoT leadership sessions. IoT is definitely one of the subjects that I follow quite a lot, and I think you have some of them as well when we look at some of the announcements that you were excited about.
Yes.
All right, so introducing Babelfish for Aurora PostgreSQL. This is a session by Tobias Ternström.
This is another big one because when Babelfish got announced with reInvent 2020, a lot of the corporations, when it comes to migrating to their to AWS, you find that they can migrate their applications, but migrating their databases, they then seem to be delayed by that because they don't know how to actually migrate what already is on-prem to AWS. This service, Babelfish, helps corporations with that. It will interpret it's your connection strings, your database connections of the application to the database. It makes it very easy for them to then migrate everything to AWS.
Yeah, this is a lot in line with the talk about database freedom. That's been a common theme for a while now, to be able to move different type of database workloads to AWS easier. And Babelfish is in preview right now, and everyone is able to register for that preview to be able to try out Babelfish for Aurora PostgreSQL.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
With me coming from a big corporate, I know for a lot of big enterprises, this tends to be one of the biggest delays why they don't migrate as fast as they would like to AWS, because most of them have your legacy databases on premises, and how do they now quickly move those to AWS? So this service is a huge announcement, most definitely.
Yeah, and this session is really good as well. It includes a demo, so you're able to see exactly how Babelfish works. So you go through both the concept and then how the service actually works. And I totally agree. It's one of the blockers that we constantly see, that people or companies have a hard time moving different type of database workloads. And this is definitely something that will help in that transition.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on then. This is an interesting one. Scaling containers on AWS.
So this is me plugging heroes. So before I joined AWS, I was an AWS hero. I was announced as a hero in May of 2020, and I met so many amazing, very talented heroes. And there is this session, and there is another one that I have on there that is presented by a hero. They are wonderful members of the communities to learn from. I always encourage members of my community to find a hero that you want to align to and learn from, because there's just so much to learn. Vlad is an AWS container hero, and here, this is a level 400 talk, so it's for experts. This is about building up and scaling containers on AWS. This session will take you through that. There's demos. It's hands-on. It's a very good one to actually go through.
Yeah, the entire community track, as you mentioned, it consists of mainly AWS heroes in different specialty fields, or community heroes, talking about the subjects that they are really, really good on hands-on practitioners in, and Vlad is an excellent example of that.
Yes.
So this is a session that I really liked as well, talking about scaling containers on AWS. So the entire community track, it is the sessions that start with COM, obviously, and the first number then says which level it is in. So this is a 400 level talk. So quite deep dive into containers on AWS. We have hello from AWS user group Novi Sad. Hey, Strenia. Nice to have you with us. If you have any questions, just feel free to put them into the chat, of course. Now, Veliswa, get rolling with machine learning on AWS Deep Razor.
This is a fun one, new game tech one. Deep Razor was released, was it 2 years ago that Deep Razor was announced?
2 years, perhaps?
I think 2 years ago, yes.
Yeah.
So Kesha is an ML AWS hero, and she's giving a talk here with a demo on getting going with AWS Deep Razor.
AWS Deep Razor is it is a great way to get started learning a lot more about machine learning, and you don't have to have a physical Deep Razor device to start using and training models with Deep Razors. And this session, it is a 200 level session, so you don't have to know that much about the subject to get started with it, and you can watch it and then take it from there. And have you tried the Deep Razor? Have you worked with it?
I have built a model. Yeah, as you say, you don't have to be very experienced to build out a model. I have built a model. I've trained one, and I think it was announced reInvent 2018 Deep Razor. I remember going to the AWS Summit in Cape Town 2019, and that's when I got to see the Deep Razor for the first time. I saw the track there. There were a couple of people who had models that they actually wanted to execute there. It was very interesting. So this is a very interesting tidbit that someone told me that I never knew up until that day, was that the part that looks like this, that's actually your front. Because I think my assumption of what the car would look like was that the bigger, the more elevated side of it would be the back, but it's actually the front, and it's got that camera. So, oh, you've got one, yes.
Yeah,
and it's got that camera on. Yes. So yes, that will definitely be another very awesome one to look into. Let's see the car. I still don't have one. I need to get my hands on one.
So this is what you mean, that it looks like this should be the front, but yeah, this is the front of the car.
Yes, yes, you would think that's the back, yeah.
So it has the camera for being able to see what happens on the track. So this is the first model of the Deep Razor. There is an upgrade kit to a newer version that is able to then avoid the obstacles and so on the track as well. So I need to upgrade mine.
So then someone like me who does not have the Deep Razor, you will build and you will train your model, but you miss out on deploying it, because deploying it is on the car, right, on the Deep Razor.
That's right. So you're able to train it and test it and actually race virtually as well, but you can't really see how it behaves in the physical world until you deploy it to a device. But that's what we have the summits for, and the different type of physical in-person events that we'll hopefully be able to have soon enough again. So, for instance, in the AWS Summit in the Nordics in Stockholm, we had the Deep Razor competition where people then were able to use the models that they've trained virtually and online, and then deploy those to Deep Razor cars and try it out on a physical model.
Yeah.
So, totally agree on this session. It's a great one to be able to get started with Deep Razor. And then we have this one. That's something that I've missed. On the money, how Paystack champions African businesses.
You can see, Gunnar, this is me using your show to plug people that I'm aligned with. I first plugged heroes, and now I'm plugging someone from Africa. But this is a fintech service, Paystack. So Ezra, who is the CIO of Paystack, is just taking us through how they were able to use AWS to scale their businesses very quickly, and they're able to help businesses scale their businesses very quickly. So this is a very fintech presentation, but I think it applies to anyone if you're in the fintech industry or just looking to see how you can use AWS to quickly scale businesses. This is the one to watch. So Ezra Olubi is CIO of Paystack. He's based in Nigeria.
So this is a company that is based in Nigeria, and
Yes.
operates in a larger part of Africa, if I...
Yes, it's mainly the northern part of Africa, close to where Nigeria is, and the neighboring countries. But yes, it's based in Nigeria.
That's interesting. And this is a level 200 talk as well. So
this is a level 200 talk. I did not see any presentation. I did not see any demos with this one.
No, this is probably more about business use case and so on.
Yes. Yes.
All right, interesting. So those were 10 sessions that Veliswa recommends, and I totally agree on several of them, and interesting to see several topics that are presented by AWS heroes as well. So then moving on to announcements at reInvent. There were a lot of announcements, and that's what we have the recaps for. So once again, if you want to have a recap on all or most of the announcements from AWS, we are doing a recap in the Nordics tomorrow. It starts at 9 a.m. CET, so feel free to join it, even though you're not based in the Nordics. Presented by me and several of our colleagues from the Solutions Architect team in the Nordics, so people who are subject matter experts in different fields, as serverless, containers, AI, ML, and so on. So the link is in the chat right now, so press it and submit your registration to the recap. All right, so back to this then, and moving over to the top releases from AWS reInvent by Veliswa. So the first one, this was a surprise to me that you have this, but I perhaps get why. So EBS GP3.
So this is a new announcement from AWS. GP3, we've had GP2. This is your general purpose SSD volumes. Now we're getting the GP3. With a GP3 volume, you can scale your IOPS throughput without needing to provision any additional block storage. So your storage capacity, you can provision that separate to your throughput. And this is an amazing announcement, and it got a lot of people excited. I saw when I went onto social media earlier on, a couple of days back, is that there's so many people who've already been trying this out with workloads of theirs, and then just seeing the power of this announcement. So a very exciting announcement from out of reInvent.
And how do you see this will being used? Are there specific use cases that you can see straight away?
I can see use cases like your virtual desktops, where what you're looking for is your performance more than you're actually looking for capacity. And this is where I would see this being used, your transaction intensive kind of workloads.
Right. So EBS GP3 is it your top announcement or top 10?
No, it's top 10. It's just one of the announcements that came out.
Cool. So next then, the Core 2 for EduKit.
This one I haven't explored as yet. It's on my list because I actually want to go and look at it. Just hearing about it, and I know there's a device that goes with it, so I definitely want to look into. It's on my list of services to go and actually check out.
Yeah, and so this is, let's say it's a two-part release. One part is the EduKit, which is, let's say, workshops for IoT devices, where you as a user can learn about how to use the IoT stack on AWS. So you go through different workshops online, self-paced, where you then connect IoT device to AWS IoT Core and then make that device do different things. And the second part of it is the actual IoT device, which is this one. So this is the box. It's a really small, simple device. And it is produced by M5 Stack, and the device is called Core 2. So pretty small device, but the build quality is just amazing. So I got the device and I've tried it out, and yeah, I gotta say it's it's an awesome way to get started with IoT on AWS. And it's reasonably priced as well, I'd say. So let me put that away. So I highly recommend you to if you're interested with IoT, check out the EduKit from AWS. So, and next then, redefine hybrid environments from on-premises to edges. What is this, Veliswa?
Okay, so this goes back to earlier on when we were talking about what is the definition of hybrid these days. Definition of hybrid is changed. It's no longer just an on-premises data center. It is, we now have local zones, we've got wavelengths, we've got devices on edge. That all now defines what the meaning of hybrid is. So this was the announcements, or what Andy just mentioned during the announcements. I thought was really quite interesting thing to just note, the new definition of what hybrid actually is.
And what type of services do you see belong to this announcement then? Because this isn't really a service announcement; it's more.
Yes, it's a grouping of services. So wavelength I already mentioned. Local zones would be there. Outposts would be there. Your customer's own data center would be there. So we've now expanded what hybrid actually means. So I see those, some of these are actually AWS services on their own. Your AWS wavelength, your local zones, your outposts. So that now just expands what the meaning of hybrid actually is.
Right. So, and this is closely aligned to that messaging, and these are real services that were announced: Amazon ECS Anywhere and Amazon EKS Anywhere.
Yes. So when I heard this being announced, I immediately thought of a lot of companies' strategies that could be tweaked with this now. This brings ECS, EKS on premises in a way. We are outsourcing ECS, EKS. You can install ECS, EKS tasks on either AWS or a customer managed infrastructure. So it makes it so easy for customers now to do the, you hear the talk again about hybrid. To do that, this now lets you deploy EKS and ECS tasks on your customer managed infrastructure as well.
And that means that you get all the benefits from, or many of the benefits from using ECS or EKS in the AWS cloud, but you're able to use it on premise, in your own data center.
Yeah.
And there are, of course, a lot of benefits from doing that as an approach to moving closer to the cloud.
Yes.
There might be different workloads that you are, for many reasons, unable to move to the cloud, but still want to benefit from the service offerings that both ECS and EKS offer.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is a great service, or two service releases that were closely aligned to the hybrid message that we had just before.
Yeah.
Because
what tends to happen, especially in my region, is most companies right now are just looking to just move workloads to AWS. There's no time to do refactoring. So they could never refactor for serverless or anything like that. This makes it so easy quick for them to just what you have already, just move that to AWS as it is. And then you can think about refactoring when you get there. It makes it so easy to do that migration for the customers.
Hey, Kobus. Nice to see you.
Hi, Kobus.
Yeah. So that was ECS Anywhere and EKS Anywhere, and they are released in preview, if I'm correct, at the moment. So next up, AWS Lambda container support. So this is an announcement that I think just reading it has made for some confusion for some people. So let's try to get the messaging straight on Lambda container support. What is it, Veliswa?
So this brings containers very closely to your to Lambda. You mentioned some confusion. I don't want to say something and then it's
No worries, no worries.
yes.
No, I think the most important part about the AWS Lambda container support is that it is mainly a way to deploy to AWS Lambda. So you can deploy containers instead of the normal way that you deploy to AWS Lambda, which is zip files with your code, with your Lambda function code. So now we can use containers to deploy to AWS Lambda. It's not exactly the same as taking a container that you're running in ECS, in EKS, or anywhere else that you have your containers and just put them into Lambda. It's more of a way to deploy containers into Lambda. So you still need to work with the Lambda code in the same way as you did before.
Okay, so I was one of the confused one then, because I was about to say that your containers that you've got in your ECS that you've deployed there, you can then, so then it's not the same thing. So I was one of the confused
Not
ones.
exactly, but and I get why it can be a bit confusing, because as the name says, it has container support, but it's mainly a way of how you deploy your code to AWS Lambda. But that means that it's now easier to deploy certain type of workloads that were quite hard before. You can use the same tooling that you had before. Let's say, for instance, that you are a heavy user of container in different ways. You're for instance running Docker, or you're running ECS in different type of workloads today. Instead of changing your tooling, the way you deploy code and so on, you can now use the same tool sets to deploy to AWS Lambda. So it makes it once again a bit easier to move into AWS Lambda for companies that today are using container. So it's a great step, definitely.
Okay, so this is not a service, and is it a feature? Would we call this a feature of AWS Lambda?
Yeah, I would say that this is a feature for AWS Lambda. That's right.
Okay, great. Okay.
So next up then, this is a service that I haven't been able to dive into yet. So Amazon DevOps Guru.
So this is another one that's on my list to still check out, and I'm saying that because when Code Guru, I find this to be in the same family, if I can say that, as Code Guru that was announced 2 years ago, and I remember when Code Guru was announced that it does what's the actual word that actually gets used? And this is why this actually grabbed my attention, exactly because of that. So this would be, I see it as a Code Guru version for DevOps. So what Code Guru was doing was it's a developer tool that does recommendations to improve your code quality for developers. I think DevOps Guru would be doing something similar, but for your pipelines. But I still need to look into that.
Yeah, and what they have in common, first off, is that they're both using machine learning. So they are powered by machine learning to then do something to make it easier to improve and so on. And from what I know about DevOps Guru so far is that it focuses on your applications, how the application performs and how available the application is. So typical tasks that someone working with DevOps would probably do otherwise. So it's a matter of getting the people that work with DevOps to have better visibility and perhaps make it easier for them to do the things they normally do. With the help of machine learning, it can then watch how the application behaves to help to then improve, for instance, performance, availability, and so on. So it finds how the application behaves and then try to find if it deviates from that normal behavior to improve on the application. So great implementation of how machine learning can be used to make the things we do on a daily basis a bit easier. And next up then, we mentioned this before, so AWS Fault Injection Simulator.
Yeah.
And so this was the fully managed chaos engineering service that was launched at reInvent. So chaos engineering service from AWS for AWS. And
So this has
tell
never
us,
been a space that I've actually explored before. But this being a managed service now, it makes it, I don't like to use the words making things easy. It kind of empowers or enables the developer community to inject, to bring chaos engineering into their applications, to introduce that in a safe way. I think that's the main thing, that's safely introduce chaos engineering to your applications.
I think that's a great take on it, that it makes it accessible for anyone using AWS, because there are services out there doing chaos engineering, managed services as well, and there are a lot of open source offerings and different tool sets that you can use to do chaos engineering. But with AWS Fault Injection Simulator, it is making it accessible for anyone using AWS. So you can use it to create your chaos engineering experiments within the same AWS console that you're doing a lot of the other work as an AWS engineer today. So I think that's a good take on it. And to begin with, it will have support for, I believe it's EC2 and for RDS, if I remember correctly. But of course, one would imagine that we will then incorporate other services into that umbrella as well. So we're able to do chaos experiments on, for instance, container services and such as well, which is common today. So that's AWS Fault Injection Simulator. Oops, there we go. Amazon Lookout for metrics. Tell us what that is, Veliswa.
This is another one, another service that uses machine learning. So it will do a detection and a diagnosis of anomalies in your business operational, your data. So it integrates with Amazon S3. I think there's CloudWatch as well. There's CloudWatch integration, if I'm not wrong. But it uses ML. That's the main things about it. So it helps your customer be proactive with how you react to anomalies on your applications.
Yeah, and many, or if not all, of the things we're working with today, our own applications, the different services that we use and so on, they all gather a bunch of different metrics all the time. So everything that's happening within our applications, we're gathering metrics. And then to be able to use a service to then use machine learning on those metrics to find these anomalies, the outliers from how our application normally behaves. That's once again making it easier to do things that we perhaps normally would do manually or as a part of our day-to-day operations. So we can use Lookout for metrics on the metrics that we're gathering all the time. So I was also really excited about this launch when we got it. It is something that I believe many companies will benefit from using to learn more about how the application behaves, and then perhaps help improve on the application based on that. So then, yes, once again, AWS Lambda.
Yeah. So this now very much around cost. You go from the 100 millisecond billing that was there before, and now it's billing per millisecond. This has huge implications for customers where cost is a huge consideration. And of course, you move to serverless already with that consideration around cost. So this takes it a couple of levels up a notch. Lambda per 1 millisecond billing versus the 100 millisecond billing that was there before.
Yeah, and this is a great example of how something is changed in the way that we bill for a specific service, that you as a customer, you don't have to do anything for it, but it will then mean that the service will become cheaper for you. The workloads that you're running will have a lower cost. So, for instance, if you previously ran AWS Lambda functions that had well, let's say that they executed in 60 milliseconds. Previously, you paid for 100 milliseconds for each of those invocations, so 40 milliseconds that you actually didn't use. But now, with the change to 1 millisecond billing, 1 millisecond increment billing means that you will pay exactly for that 60 milliseconds and nothing more. So this started, I believe, for the December billing month. So everyone starting off that month would probably get a lower AWS Lambda bill without having to do anything. So I think this is a huge deal. It also means that we get to look at the things we build in a different way. So we don't have to think about in the same way how we spend those milliseconds in our Lambdas, in our Lambda functions, because it is now per 1 millisecond increment. So for the heavy users of AWS Lambda, it will probably make quite a big difference. And we saw examples of that straight away. People starting sharing screenshots on Twitter and other social media showing how that changed the way they were built for AWS Lambda. So excellent. That was the last one. Sorry about that.
That's the last one. Oh, okay.
All right, so that's a great list of different announcements, Veliswa, and I agree on several of them. I had them on my top 10 as well, not least the one about Lambda. Failure injection simulator, of course, is on my top 10 list as well. I am a heavy proponent of using chaos engineering as a way to build more reliable, resilient applications. So having that as a service is definitely great. So
I think you asked me earlier, you said which one is my number one. I don't think I'd be able to choose one. I think I have number ones for different reasons. And like the chaos engineering, it's a very exciting one for its own reasons. And the Lambda container support, the ECS and EKS Anywhere for me, because I've seen actually use cases that require those services. For me, it then also becomes another big exciting one. So I think I would struggle to actually say which one is the one, but I've got a couple of number ones for a couple of different reasons.
No, it's probably the same for me. It's hard to put them in order. There are so many service releases or announcements, and to rank them against each other, well, it depends on who you speak to, I think.
Yes.
Sometimes I see failure or fault injection simulator as my number one, but next time it might be something around AWS Lambda or, as you said, something around hybrid, for instance. It's going to be a huge change for how many companies think about cloud and AWS cloud going forward. One announcement that got a lot of attention that you didn't have on your list was the release. You had instances, but we had one specific instance type release that got a lot of attention. The Mac instances for EC2.
Oh, yes. I remember,
And that's a very interesting one, being able to run your Mac OS workloads on AWS. So that's something that I know a lot of people working with development of, for instance, iOS apps and things like that are very excited about, to be able to run Mac instances in AWS Cloud. Thinking a bit about what else I had on my list. I don't have a great PowerPoint in this way to show, but I think in regards to hybrid, for instance, talking a bit more about that, the new releases around Outposts are exciting as well. To be able to have smaller outposts in customer locations. So previously, if you were to use AWS Outposts, the fully managed service, that extends AWS infrastructure to your own data center. It was one full rack of AWS equipment. But now we've released AWS Outposts in both 1U and 2U server units. So you can leverage that AWS infrastructure in your own data center or physical server location without having to have an entire rack. So I think that's a huge one as well for the hybrid audience, the customers.
Yeah. No, that is quite awesome. See, that would be another one that I missed. And I think that's why it's always a good thing that we have all these recaps that we have going on, because there's always so much that gets announced and you will definitely miss quite a lot of things. So I say I missed that one.
Yeah, and you had some around machine learning as well. That's another area where there were just a bunch of different announcements. You had, for instance, DevOps Guru, you had Lookout for metrics, which are machine learning related announcements. But there were, of course, a bunch of announcements around SageMaker as well. And if you're interested in the machine learning space, deep dive into those is probably a good thing to learn more about the possibilities that are there now with the machine learning and the AI services. Let's see, I'm just looking through my own list of things I wrote down, services. I have a full list of my own AWS reInvent announcements notes, trying to find some of the more important one service that I thought is pretty neat is a feature announcement for Amazon Quicksite, Amazon Quicksite Q. I'm not sure if you saw that.
Not yet. I've been hearing about it, but no detail as yet.
So Amazon Quicksite Q once again uses machine learning and natural language query technology. So if you're using Quicksite as a way to visualize and analyze your data, which we know many customers do, you can now use the new feature called Amazon Quicksite Q to then ask questions around that data. So for instance, what was the sales in Stockholm for November? Which is a very, very natural question to ask. And then Quicksite will, based on the data you have within Quicksite, be able to show you that sales data. So it's a natural way of asking questions around the data you're visualizing within Quicksite. So that's a feature I like. I like Quicksite, to be honest. It makes it's fairly easy to get started visualizing data that you already have within AWS. We also had one which I believe is a huge service release, and that was the Amazon Aurora Serverless V2, version 2 of Aurora Serverless. So Aurora Serverless V2 is in preview right now, and Aurora Serverless is as the name suggests, it's the serverless offering of AWS Aurora for your MySQL databases, and running that in a serverless fashion means that it can then scale on demand, and you only pay for what you use, compared to your more instance-based Aurora workloads or setups where you pay for the instances that you're using. And Aurora Serverless was released, I believe it's 2 years ago now, and this serverless one is a new version of it that was released during the event. And it now sorry, Veliswa.
Is it just more richer features? Is that what it gets you now, the V2?
What it does is that the auto-scaling part of it is a lot better, that it actually scales, and it is more reliable as a serverless offering. But you also get more of the features that you previously only had within the other Aurora, the instance-based offerings, now in the serverless one. So it is more scalable. It can scale more instantly than before, and it is highly available, which the previous one wasn't in the same way.
Okay.
The compute part of Aurora Serverless was in one AC only at a time. So that's a great one for people working with at least serverless workloads.
Yeah, great.
Let's see. Yeah, and we had one that was released quite late as well in the cycle, which was Amazon Location Service, a new service for location data from AWS. So you're able to then create applications that need to use location data in different ways and use an AWS managed service for that, instead of what we perhaps normally did before, to use third parties for that type of data. So that's one of my favorite releases as well. What else did we have? Oh yeah, two managed service releases from the open source space, which one's Amazon Managed Service for Grafana and Amazon Managed Service for Prometheus. Two services that many people did run in AWS previously, but now we offer them as managed services, which makes it more accessible, less time to set up both Grafana and Prometheus, and we offer them as managed services where we take care of the underlying infrastructure and so on for both Grafana and Prometheus. That's something perhaps very commonly used within companies running container workloads and so on.
So I remember last year, close to the end of last year, there was integration with Grafana that was announced. So this now, it's actually a managed service on AWS. Grafana becomes a managed service on AWS, yeah.
That's right. So previously, we have had solutions for running it. So basically an infrastructure as code stack that you can run to get it up and running. But now we offer it as a managed service instead, which of course is a whole lot easier. So you don't have to think about how it's actually built underneath, because we take care of that heavy lifting that's involved with running those.
Yeah.
So those were some of the sessions that we saw during reInvent, some of the releases that we saw. I think if you watch this, hopefully you've noted down some of them to deep dive into them further. And Veliswa, thank you very much for joining me today to talk about your favorite sessions and releases from AWS. And one last reminder that we're doing a reInvent recap tomorrow in the Nordics. So if you want to join us, feel free to jump in and register for that. I'll post the link in the chat once more.
Let me find my link for to register for the one that's taking place next week. My recap and Gobas and a couple other developer advocates in the SSA region.
Yes, do that. So this one is for the Nordics, but no matter where you're located, you're able to join since it's a webinar. And we'll go through these announcements that we saw during reInvent in more detail during a 3.5-hour webinar tomorrow. So with that, Veliswa, once again, thank you very much. And to everyone watching, thank you. We'll be back next Monday at 1. Keep an eye on the schedule for what we're going to talk about, but I can almost promise you that it's going to be a deep dive on some of the things that we saw from reInvent with one of the subject matter experts that we have in the Nordics. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.